All right, Portia, we're live. So good afternoon to you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is John Nerrill. I help professionals who are ambitious about their careers create their next advancement opportunity. And this is my weekly Facebook Live show. And today is show number 84. It's called Why You Need a Professionally Written Resume. And my guest is the owner of Fly High Coaching, Porschia Parker-Griffin. Portia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I'm excited to be here, and congrats on 84 shows.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're getting close to 100 and a big celebration with that. So absolutely. So Portia and we've connected on LinkedIn. We actually went through the same coaching certification program at IPEC, the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching. And we've partnered. I've done some work for her company, which has been really great and beneficial. And I wanted to have her on the show today because aside from being just a phenomenal coach, she and her team do an incredible job when it comes to writing resumes. And this is something that, especially at the start of the new year, people are looking to figure out what's going to be next for their career and such. So I wanted to have you on the show today to specifically talk about that. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. I'm excited.
Great. So typically right now, Portia, we welcome some people into the room. So Terry, I want to give a shout out to you and say hi and Happy New Year. It's great to have you here. And so as we just welcome people into the room, I always like to let people know that on my website at johnnerrill.com, I've got a wonderful free resource for you. It's called 3 Steps to Creating Your Next Advancement Opportunity Without Feeling Overwhelmed. You'll simply fill out the form that's on the website and you'll enter your name and your email address in to get the workbook, but it also enters you into my email community where you get information each week related to leadership and career topics, especially great interviews like these. So you can either watch them live with us here on Facebook or catch them on the replay. So you've got all of those. All right. So Portia, without any further ado, let's get into this. I would love for you to tell our listeners today a little bit more about who you are and what you do. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I am Porschia Parker-Griffin, as you mentioned, and I am founder and CEO of Fly High Coaching. We are a coaching and a consulting firm, and we also do some professional writing services, as you mentioned, John. Really, at my core, I just like helping people and solving problems. Mm-hmm. And when I thought strategically about my company, I wanted to help people do that. And throughout, the journey of working with clients, and I'm sure you've come across this yourself, sometimes I found that our clients needed additional services, something that, we didn't offer at that time. And in order to serve them in a way to where they were reaching their goals and, on the timelines that they wanted, we started adding some additional services. I call them our career support services, which lead into, the resume writing. We do LinkedIn makeovers. We write cover letters. And then we also do some interview coaching as well. So those are some things that we do in addition to kind of more traditional career coaching, leadership coaching, and executive coaching.
Right. And one of the great partnerships that we've had and we've talked along the way. So, my expertise is not in writing a resume. And I often say I just can't figure out where to put the semicolon. And that's why I leave it to people like you and your team, whom I know I've referred my clients over to you to really just not only just freshen up their resume, but really create a resume that is professionally done to really help them be positioned strategically and accordingly in the marketplace. And so I just appreciate so much the work that you do, not just in the resume and the career building sense, but all the business solutions and things like that you offer. So I really encourage people to go and check out your website at flyhighcoaching.com. There's a dash in between Fly High, and we'll have the website information up in the show notes. But it really is, you've got such a a wide variety of services in your company. And I want people to know that, because even though today we're going to focus specifically on resumes, there are so much more services that you do offer. So I want to make that clear.
Yes, thank you. And we'll take care of the semicolons, John.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. So tell us specifically, especially now that we're in 2020 and we are this digitally connected society, why do we still need a resume when we're applying for a job?
Yeah, a resume is like, one way to think about it is a business card. Another way to think about it is a way to make that impression without physically being in front of someone. With technology, we know that things are moving at a mile a minute, and you can't physically be there with people all of the time. So you need a calling card, is what some people
Right.
used to call it years ago. So a resume is just a way to display your background, hopefully in a really compelling way that makes people want to get to know more about you.
And so we often find, and I know I've been guilty of this myself, is that you think you can just do it on your own, right? You think you
Yep.
can figure it all out. I went to college, I got my degree, I should know how to put a resume
Exactly.
together. And so we find people who really struggle with putting their resume together and figuring out the best format and what needs to go where and everything. So
Mhm.
why do you advocate that people get their resume professionally written?
Wow. Really good question. And you touched on a lot of things there, John. I would say prior to 5 to 10 years ago, you could say, hey, I'm a good writer. I'm going to write my own resume. And it worked because resumes weren't going through computers and people were actually reading and or scanning them. And if you could visually make an impression on a reader, you could potentially get an interview. Nowadays, with the technology that is out there and just the sheer number of applicants that these companies have to go through, hundreds and thousands of applicants, you really have to stick out in a positive way. And I like what you mentioned earlier about, people saying or really thinking, hey, I'm smart. And we work with a lot of smart people. I'll say about 95% of our clients are people who I'd consider to be really smart.
Mhm.
But when it comes to a professionally written resume, I like to say that it's part technical writing. So you have to get out your skills on the page. People have to understand what you can do. But it's also part creative writing because it doesn't need to just sound like a compilation of different job descriptions. Sometimes I talk to people and they say, hey, I just copied and pasted my job descriptions that I found into my resume. And so that's not really creative. It's
No.
not going to really help you stand out. And it may or may not technically have those key words for the position that you're applying for, where you want to go in your career, I should say. It just kind of talks about your past. So as you can see, you've got to think about the past. You've got to think about future presentation and how you want to position yourself moving forward. There are just a lot of things to think about. And then it's just really hard for most people to write about themselves because they feel like they're bragging or they don't really know the right words to say. They don't know what aspects of their career other people will want to hear about. So it's a lot to really synthesize, I think is the word. We have an intake process that you've seen where we have a
Mhm.
questionnaire. Sometimes I talk with people on the phone, but we synthesize a lot of information about their background to just be able to present what's important in a compelling way. Quick story I'll give you that I think really kind of sums this up. I had a client a couple of years ago. He had an MBA and he was trying to make a slight transition in his career. And he was actually referred to me by his aunt. And his aunt said, hey, I really like what you do. I'd like you to talk to my nephew. So when I spoke with him, he said, I've applied for over 100 jobs this past year, and I got one phone screening, and it was a no thanks.
Mm.
I'm feeling really frustrated. He said, I had a 4.0 GPA in my MBA program. I just feel like I should be able to write a stinking resume. And I said, when it comes to resume writing, it's not about your today. It's not about necessarily your intellect. There are a lot of keywords. There's a lot of structure when it comes to computers, technology, that it's not common knowledge. Most people don't know this. So you don't have to beat yourself up about the resume. And so we worked with him. And I would say probably within 3 to 4 months, he had an international job opportunity overseas. And he was just really excited about it. But like you said, it's not like it was 10 years ago. It's not something to beat yourself up about. There really is a method to it.
Right. I love that story. And just piggybacking on that, right? I mean, I think one of the biggest things that we've seen is that there was a time when resumes were all about, here are the tasks that I've done. And now we see so much more that the resumes are about, here's where I've added value. Here's the accomplishments I've done. And I love how you and your company have this format where you really meld these two together, but showcase, here's the accomplishments that someone has done on their job, that you get to pull that out. Right. And it's not about bragging. It's about, this is the value that I get to do. And I'm saying bragging because one of our listeners has chimed in. And I do want to just post up here. So JC is a frequent listener, and so glad she's here. Right. That sometimes we feel like we're bragging. Right. But that's part of what, we need to get out of our own way with that and say, look, this is about what I'm able to do for you and your organization. Right. And also too, right. So that we can go and we can ask colleagues and trusted friends and people who are also in the coaching space, right. To give feedback on the resume. There is such a difference though between getting feedback and then having the resume professionally done. And for one of the most main reasons here is this particular question, and you alluded to it earlier. You talk about getting the resumes electronically screened, right? And they're going through what we know as the Applicant Tracking System. For those who don't know what the ATS is, can you give us like a high-level definition of it and why that's important in the application process?
Absolutely. So an applicant tracking system is something used internally, usually by recruiting and HR departments, to help them track all the candidates that apply for a certain job and move them through the screening process. And it technically nowadays, most of them have some type of screening software in the beginning that goes through all of the resumes that are, submitted online. I like to tell people that if you see, upload your resume here, apply now, for any company that I would say is mid-size and definitely up to enterprise organizations. Sometimes really small micro businesses aren't using them, but most companies are. Mm-hmm. So it's filtering out the candidates' resumes that don't match up with what a recruiter internally has identified as what's important for the role. I like to tell people, in short, most ATS systems are looking for the right keywords in the right frequency to say, this candidate is a good fit. And then it gives it a score. If it scores it highly, usually you move along in the process. Mm-hmm. If your score is low, a couple of things can happen, but one of the main things that people see are those automatic decline emails. And sometimes people say, oh, I got a decline in 45 minutes at 11 o'clock at night. Right? Obviously, most times no one's working at that time, but the computer has scanned the resume and made a determination that it's not the best fit with the job.
Mm-hmm. That's really, really helpful. And so when you talk about making sure that your resume has those keywords and the frequency of those keywords, we talk about needing to customize your resume to the job posting. So if you can, tell us a little bit about that in terms of why we just can't take this one resume and just send it out to every single job we're applying to.
Yes, and that kind of goes back to the applicant tracking system and the keywords. Sometimes you can use the same resume if the positions that you're applying for are similar. So if you're applying for sales jobs and business development, which sometimes is called inside sales, a mix between sales and marketing, a lot of times you could use that same resume in both instances. But if you were going to, apply for a sales position and then an HR position, those skill sets are really different. And so customizing your resume in that sense means speaking to the skills that you have and the transferable skills that are appropriate for that position that you're applying for. So in our intake process and the questionnaire that you've seen, John, we ask about what specific positions are you applying for, because we on our end go do our due diligence, check out those types of positions so we have a frame of reference in order to customize your resume. Sometimes, and this actually just happened to me 2 days ago, I spoke with a potential client. She decided to get her resume done, and then she sent us about 8 different types of jobs that she wanted to apply for. HR, talent management, sourcing, operations management, project management, and marketing and internal communications. And I had to tell her that, hey, one resume to address all 8 of these positions is not going to be the most effective. And so I broke it down into about 3 different versions that she could have for those 8 different types of positions. And so customizing it really just means speaking to the types of positions that you're targeting.
Right. And I do want to say that for anybody who's listening, if you have any questions for Porschia, please go ahead, type them in the chat box. I'll make sure that she gets a chance to answer them. But piggybacking on that, you actually just your company just did a resume for my goddaughter, who
Yes.
is right. And so we haven't had a chance to follow up on this. So as part of her, Christmas present, if you will, I gifted her getting her resume professionally done. Now, she has her bachelor's. She's currently in graduate school. She's working towards a master's degree in cybersecurity. And she had shared her resume with me. And it was, I'm just going to say, it would be like what you would typically see from someone who had just graduated college. It had some things in there that were good and some things that probably weren't really relevant. But it was that I'm really not so sure, being that I am still new as a younger professional, how to really get my resume together. And so we started focusing on what are the key skills that you have? What does your professional profile look? And she and I had some conversations, and then I passed that off to you and your team. And as soon as I got the email yesterday from you, I sent her a text and I'm like, someone's got a new resume, ! And she took a look at it, and about 10 minutes later, cap letters, she wrote, "I love it." And then it was like, when do I start to send this out? And I'm like, as soon as you find a job you really like, you send it out. That's what it's there for. But what this resume has done for her, and what it gets to do for any client, anybody that's out there in the marketplace, is that it gives them the confidence and the confidence to move forward, right? There should be no doubt whatsoever that when you've got your resume professionally done, you get to move far more intentionally, because you know what your skills are, you know what your value is, you know what your worth is, and you've got this resume that really is that business card, but a far more detailed business card about, here's how I can help you in your organization. And I think that's one of the best gifts we can give to somebody in our line of work, to really help them with that. So thank you.
Well, Thank you. We really enjoyed helping her.
Right.
And you're right. It can really just change someone's confidence. That's another big thing that I know comes up a lot for you. And it comes up a lot in the resume conversation is sometimes I talk to people and they say, I've just applied for these jobs. I've gotten all of these no's. I'm maybe interviewed for 2 jobs and my confidence has taken a big hit. And sometimes just redoing that resume can help reaffirm, all of the skills and the experience that you have to go out there and really land that next opportunity, like you talk about, John.
Right. So there are far more things that you and I both get to do in terms of career coaching. So I'm just really curious, what do you see for someone who is maybe considering working with a coach or considering working with you or me? I mean, what do you see as the benefits of career coaching to help someone?
Yeah, there are so many, but I think some of the main ones that I highlight, usually just depending on the person in our conversation, is one, having that unbiased professional who can really listen to what's going on and help with planning, help with getting clarity, and help with taking action. Um, most of us have a lot of people in our lives, right? We've got family members, we've got friends, we've got colleagues at our current job, we probably have colleagues from a previous job, and talking to all of these people is great. But most of the time, these people in our lives, they see us in a certain way. So they're biased to a certain degree in terms of how they see us. They might not see us as that manager that we aspire to be, or making the salary that we aspire to make, because no one in our family's ever done it, or no one in the team has ever, progressed to that stage. So working with a coach can really help you to kind of get out of your everyday experience and life and network to focus on what you want and really look to the future. So that's one of the main benefits. I would also say getting clarity. A lot of people that I talk to, they've had a thought for months, years, and they don't really know how to make it happen. They don't really know what steps they need to take. And working with a career coach can really help you get clear so that you can start getting results faster. And most of the clients I have want to get results faster because a lot of them have been trying it on their own. They've been trying it, their own way, and it hasn't worked out. And so faster is usually kind of what they're looking for as well.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I also want to say too, and I think it's an important part in this conversation, is that, whether you're looking at resume writing services or interview coaching or LinkedIn optimization, or you're looking for career and leadership coaching, whatever that might be, there's a cost associated with that, right? There is an investment in time and money and energy in order to do that. And we oftentimes will come up with the objections where people will say, oh, I don't really want to spend that kind of money. And so if they're open for coaching around that, right, it allows us to really kind of shine that spotlight on them in terms of how they are really kind of standing in their own way, where, let's face it, if you want to go on vacation, if you want to buy something, whatever that is, if you want to go out and have a really nice dinner with friends, you will find the money to go and do that if it is that important to you, right? Exactly. And so I think it's really important to say too that, when you are hiring somebody who doesn't have that bias, that familial bias, that professional bias, because they know us and see us in a certain light, as you so well said, it really allows us to come in and do our job as that, diagnostic and intuitive listener, to ask them the questions that they need to help move them forward, to provide them with some mentoring perhaps when needed, but to really help them move in that way. And then for them to really see the benefit and the value that will not only be in that moment, but will also take them throughout the duration of their career.
Very well said, John. When a way and some questions that I ask people sometimes are around, the difference in well, one, salary is a big one.
Sure.
So if you make just, we'll say, $5,000 to $10,000 more per year for the average person, that can really change some things in their life, when it comes to, like you said, vacations, when it comes to, maybe their children, when it comes to their family members. It can really change things. And when you think about it, like you said, over the long term, when you think about your career, making an extra 5, 10, 15, $20,000 per year,
Right.
let's compare that figure to the hundreds, or maybe couple hundred, few hundred, maybe thousands of dollars for coaching. It's about really putting things in perspective. And then also, like you said, how important is it to you?
Right.
Because the average person will go out and spend a couple of $100s in a weekend on some steak dinners and at the bar, or some kind of excursion with their friends. But are you willing to invest that in your career?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And just kind of seeing some of the chat stuff going on, we're getting some, likes and thumbs up and things like that. Because, right, I mean, it does come down to that point where if this is something you really want, then find the right person who's going to be the best fit for you and start moving forward in all of that.
Exactly.
So we are starting to get near time, and it's hard to believe this, half hour's gone rather quickly. I know, right? But there is one question I always end the show with, and that's this. So what advice would you give to someone to create their next advancement opportunity?
Ooh, this is a big question. I thought about a lot of things, and to not spend, another 30 minutes talking about it, I'd say the main thing that people can do is get clear. Most people don't really have the clarity needed to even start planning, to even start taking action. So if you want to create your next advancement opportunity, you've got to get clear on what that looks like to you. Because that looks different to every person. Is that a title change? Is that making more money? Is that staying with your same title and your same salary, but perhaps being cross-trained to do something else, learning a new skill, getting certified? An advancement opportunity can look very different to different people. So I would challenge people to write down a few things that would help them define what that means for them. At that point, you can start moving forward. But a lot of people kind of just have a vague idea, like, oh, I want to be a manager. What industry? What roles do you want to focus on? What kind of manager do you want to be? There's so many departments that have managers. There are, so really getting clear on this type of thing, I think, is really the first step to thinking about advancement.
Nice. Well said. I like that a lot. So thank you for that. So Porschia, if somebody wants to get a hold of you and reach out to you for any of your services that you and your team offer, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
I think the best way for them to get a hold of me is to go to our website, which, like you mentioned, is www.fly-high-coaching.com. You can find out everything about us there. We also have a free course all around kickstarting your success, and that can be used with your career or your leadership. So that's a great way to kind of get started with us. If you are the type of person who likes to kind of read content, you might be interested in connecting with me on LinkedIn. I write as a career contributor for a publication. I write for our own site. So if you're just kind of interested in insights, that would be a good place to connect with me too.
Nice. Great. Absolutely. So definitely check out the website at fly-highcoaching.com and check that out. And Porschia, thank you so very much for your time and sharing your expertise with everyone. I really appreciate this. And thank you so much also for our professional relationship and our collegiality. It's been just such a blessing in this new job, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Agreed. And something I haven't told you, John, is, I'm sure everyone gets people that reach out to them on LinkedIn, and I get a lot of individuals that reach out to me. But I remember when we connected on LinkedIn, something about your message, I said, this guy's professional. I said, this guy is going places. And so thank you so much. I appreciate our relationship, and I look forward to continuing to partner together.
No, same here. So the rule of thumb here is that if you're going to reach out to someone and connect with them on LinkedIn, you need to send a message. You need to add that note, 300 characters or less, but let them know why you want them to connect, because great things can happen. So that makes it really nice. So thanks to everybody who's been watching and joining. Thanks for the feedback. If you like today's episode, please go ahead and share it with somebody, especially if you know someone who is considering getting their resume done or needs a little bit of help with getting their resume done. This is a great one to just give them some valuable information and get the wheels turning, and thinking about maybe hiring a professional resume writer such as Porschia and her team would be great. So until next week, I'll see you next week with another interview, and wish everybody a great rest of the day. Porschia, thanks again.
Thanks, John.
All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.